So we're looking at, in this case, trying to understand the whole system of why hypertension occurs and why we treat it certain ways, why we want to treat it aggressively. And so in this case, maybe some of the guidelines in the past, or most people might be familiar with this as just more of a focus on the heart. You know, you think of high blood pressure, you automatically jump to the heart. And while that is I think the most important part of all of this, it takes kind of a whole system approach, and it integrates, the importance of looking at kidney function and maintaining kidney function in the context of managing hypertension or preventing, and also just, the body's metabolism as a whole. And also as it relates to cognitive function and brain health, which we'll see. So it touches on multiple aspects, which is big. And then the kind of the headline that we're seeing with this change is the lower is better mantra. And so the old wait and see approach, which I think a lot of, maybe historically practitioners were a little more apprehensive to start different therapies because patients were adamant about, I'm going to change this part of my lifestyle. I'm going to take out all of this extra salt that I'm eating. I'm going to, so on and so forth. So this is a much more, and it might make people uncomfortable, but this is a much more aggressive, I think. There's more of an aggressiveness to these guidelines. Again, in terms of the lower we can get these numbers, the better. We're shifting towards earlier interventions than we already are. The goalposts really have just shifted because we're realizing that waiting until we see a 140 over 90 is kind of missing the boat. Mm-hmm. And then also we want to prevent heart failure. And again, like I mentioned, the importance of preventing cognitive decline to the effect, as much as we can. And so how that all relates. So for example, if we look at dementia, or if we look at cognitive function, this big shift is that hypertension or high blood pressure is the single biggest risk factor that we're aware of for cognitive decline. And so the and so the guidelines state that we need to get that top number below 130, ideally below 120, not just again to prevent, heart attacks, strokes, repeat attacks, strokes, etc., but also to protect the brain. It just crystallizes, a lot of what people are already concerned, what people are already being told, and now they have one more thing to connect this nebulous topic of cognitive decline to. Hey, if I'm taking care of my heart, if I'm a little more receptive to these recommendations and maybe this medication or this lifestyle change, that I'm also getting these downstream effects cognitively too. And what's interesting too, just understanding maybe some of the mechanistic side of the cognitive decline. If you think of it as higher pressure being present, it almost acts as like a power washer on the delicate vessels in the brain. So downstream effects of that, you can essentially cause these microvascular issues. We start to lose capillary density in certain parts of the brain, and then the brain eventually just starves of these nutrients, starves of oxygen. Wow. And then there's also kind of a cleansing or clearing pathway that occurs in the brain as well to get rid of certain waste products and such. And so because the vasculature in the brain stiffens and it becomes less elastic, more stressed, more inflamed, that some of that pump action fails. And what we see is the brain unable to clear some of these waste products that it normally can.
Okay. So go back. So what you said is that we think the relationship between high blood pressure and things like dementia, the brain issues, are related to the blood pressure being high means the blood is kind of functioning like a pressure washer. There's so much pressure coming through that it's damaging the really delicate veins in the brain to the point that they stop functioning. They just shut down or clot up or whatever.
Yep.
So that reduces the amount of oxygen and other nutrients getting to the brain over time. And then on top of that, that also reduces the amount of waste product cleaning that's happening to the brain.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, I just want to make sure I got all that. Okay,
that's as good. That's as good as you could do it right there.
Well,
I would say.
Thank you.
And there's more. There's even more to it there, but I think those are maybe like the 2 or 3 biggest aspects that hypertension affects.
So it is actually really relevant. Okay.
Yep.